round of applause for Chloe and Jody. Come on, Ashley. Go ahead. All right. Welcome, everybody, to the October 9th Technical Coordinating Committee of the French Broad River Metropolitan Planning Organization. I am your TCC chair, William Hine, and with that, we will take it around for welcome and introduction.
If you'd like to go around the room.
Let's start in the room over here. Did you hear it? Oh, sorry.
Olin Dalehausen, Pond and Company.
Asherita, Land of Sky Regional Council. Sandy Broadwell, Land of Sky Regional Council.
J.C. O'Connor, French Broad River MPO.
Hannah Bagley, French Broad River MPO.
Tristan Linkler, French Broad River MPO.
William Hine, Buncombe County.
David Roy, North Carolina Turnpike Authority.
Chris Medlin, NCDOT, Division 13, Asheville District Engineer.
Seven Sparks, Division 13, Transportation Planning Division. Doug Phillips, DOT, Division 13, Planning Engineer.
Steve Williams, NCDOT, Division 14.
Wesley Grindstaff, Division Engineer, NCDOT, and Division 14.
Thank you very much. Asha, could you take us to the folks online?
I can. Ada McGovern.
Hey, Ada McGovern, Land of Sky Regional Council.
Eric Rufa.
Yeah, good morning. It's Eric with the town of Fletcher. Also here with Tyler Morrow, who's going to be taking over for me starting next month.
Autumn Ratcliffe. Carly Swanson.
Good morning. I'm Carly Swanson from NCDOT, the Turnpike Authority.
Pat Christie.
Good morning, Pat Christie, Village of Flat Rock.
Chloe Donahoe.
Hi, everybody. Chloe Donahoe, Buncombe County Transit.
I believe Cody W. is Cody
Weddle.
Weddle.
Hey, good morning. Cody Weddle, Division 14, District 2 Engineer.
Daniel Sellers.
Good morning, everyone. Daniel Sellers, NCDOT's Transportation Planning Division.
Christina Harris.
Christina Harris, City of Asheville.
James Eller.
James Eller, Town of Weaverville.
Jana Bianculli.
Jana Bianculli, Henderson County. Morning.
Jody Ferguson.
Good morning, Jody Ferguson, Haywood County.
Lucy Crown.
Good morning, Lucy Crown, City of Asheville Transportation Department.
Michael Malachek.
Morning, Michael Malachek, Planning Director, Town of Mills River.
Troy Wilson. And Vicki Eastland.
Good morning, folks. Vicki Eastland, Land of Sky RPO.
Did I miss anybody? It's kind of jumping around a little bit.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody. With that, is there any public comment at this time? Okay, hearing none, we will move on. If anyone would like has any questions or comments regarding our agenda, otherwise we will entertain a motion to approve the agenda and consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda and consent agenda.
Thank you, Steve. Do we have a second?
Jody Ferguson, I'll second.
Thank you, Jody. Asha, would you help us out?
All right, I have Asheville, Lucy Crown.
Aye.
Wilmore Forest, Terry Buckner. Buncombe County, William Hine.
Approved.
Buncombe Transit, Chloe Donahoe.
Approve.
DPD, Daniel Sellers.
Approved.
Flat Rock, Pat Christie.
Approved.
Fletcher, Eric Rufa.
Aye.
Haywood County, Jody Ferguson.
Aye.
Henderson County, Autumn Ratcliffe. Apple Country Public Transit, Jana Bianculli.
Aye.
Mills River, Michael Malachek.
Approve.
LOFRPO, Vicky Eastland.
Aye.
Weaverville, James Eller.
Approved.
NCDOT Division 13, Doug Phillips.
Aye.
NCDOT Division 14, Steve Williams.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
Thank you, everyone. With that, we will take it to our first business item, which is the Title VI plan. All right, bear with me just a second while I get that pulled up for you.
All right, good morning, everybody. Today, we're just going over an update to the French Broad River MPO's Title VI plan. This is a plan that's required both by SBA and FHWA to be updated on a 3-year cycle. And generally speaking, Title VI requires that no person in the United States shall, on the grounds of race, color, or national origin, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. And so this is our plan for how we make sure that we comply with that title of the Civil Rights Act, 1964. And generally speaking, we've gone over this before in previous presentations, just as to the status of the Title VI plan update. The Title VI plan includes the Civil Rights Act of 1964, other titles including Title VII and Title IX, the Americans with Disability Act and the Age Act of 1975. Due to some changes at the executive branch level, there have been some rescissions to executive orders that were previously included under the umbrella of Title VI, including Executive Order 12898, which covered environmental justice, and Executive 13166, which covered language plans for those that speak languages other than English. So, Title VI plans are required for any recipient of federal funds under SBA and FHWA. And a recipient is anyone that receives federal financial assistance that's extended directly or through another recipient, including any successor, assignee, or transferee thereof, but the term does not include any ultimate beneficiary. So just by receiving or passing through any federal funds, the MPO automatically becomes a recipient under Title VI. So in the history of the Title VI plan for the French Broad River MPO, our Title VI plan was initially adopted on June 23rd, 2011. The last update was in June 2019, excuse me. And so this is an update to the June 2019 plan. In terms of what's being updated, there's periodic revisions because most of the information relies on census information and other demographic information. We've gone through and updated those changes that have changed as a result of political, geographic, or the demographic environment. We removed references to rescinded executive orders and completed new analysis of the federal requirements pertaining to the Title VI plan, including identification of communities of concern, analysis of low English proficiency communities and linguistic concentrations across the MPO planning area, and assessment and identification of community groups that can aid in reaching LEP communities, disadvantaged populations, and communities of concern. And this is just a brief overview of the analysis that we did for the language plan. The biggest thing that we noticed, and I'll go to what the change in languages spoken within the MPO region have looked like over the past several years. We've seen a number of changes within those populations, and so the question that we had to answer that was unclear due to some changes at the census level, were there any Russian, were the number of people that speak Russian, did that trigger new LEP requirements for us as a region? And we went through and using regression analysis and census information, we're able to determine that the only language category that we are required to provide additional language services is for those individuals speaking Spanish as their primary language. And this is just another summary slide to show that change. over time, including from the last update to the Title VI plan. So our timeline to date, we engaged the revision of the Title VI plan beginning in August 2024. That included analysis of census data, and we ran into the issues of data availability relative to the LEP communities due to changes at the census level. We completed an analysis of community concern data through the MCP revision process, or the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. And we've completed a review of pertinent executive orders and regulatory changes that have come about since August of 2024. And most recently, the Title VI plan was sent to NCDOT for compliance review and came back with minor changes as part of that process. And so what we're asking for today is a recommendation to recommend that the MPO board adopt the updated Title VI plan. And with that, I can entertain any questions.
Was the removal of executive orders the main motivation for this update?
No, we should be updating it every 3 years. Our last update was in 2019.
Okay. And to note, as part of the MPO's federal certification review, updating the Title VI plan was one of the recommendations that FHWA gave TPA.
Okay, I'm just asking if we have to update ours periodically, making sure we don't need to do it sooner than scheduled. Are there any further questions for Daisy on the Title VI plan?
I have a question. Could you tell me again what the executive order that's being rescinded, not the environmental justice, but the second one, what the number is?
Yes, it's Executive Order 13166.
And it is for, what does that mean?
That's the LEP executive order for the language analysis. Even though there's still a language analysis piece that's required, it made some changes in terms of what language categories or what the expectation for inclusive language categories was expected to be.
Okay, if no one has any further questions, we can entertain a motion to approve this update to the Title VI plan.
This is Jana.
So moved. Go ahead, Jen.
Well, or I'll second your motion, Steve.
All right, thank you, Steve and Jana.
Great. Asheville, Lucy Crown.
No votes.
All right. Biltmore Forest, Harry Buckner. Buncombe County, William High.
Approved.
Buncombe Transit, Chloe Donahoe.
Approve.
This is Harry. I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes. Do you approve or not approve?
Yes.
And TBD, Daniel Sellers.
Approved.
Flat Rock, Pat Christie.
Approve.
Fletcher, Eric Rufa.
Aye.
Haywood County, Jody Ferguson.
Aye.
Henderson County, Autumn Radcliffe. Apple Country Public Transit, Jana Bianculli.
Aye.
Mills River, Michael Malachek. RPO, Vicki Eastland.
Aye.
Weaverville, James Eller.
Approved.
NCDOT Division 13, Doug Phillips.
Aye.
NCDOT Division 14, Steve Williams.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
Thank you, everyone. And we'll kick it off now toward 5310 and JARC, call for projects.
All right, today we are looking at opening up the 5310 and JARC call for projects. Today we're looking for a recommendation from the TCC to the board to go ahead and open up that call for projects. General information on the call for projects. The previous call for projects ran from January to March 2025. That call for projects was delayed due to Hurricane Helene and was not held until January rather than the originally scheduled time in the fall of 2024. Contracting is currently underway for that previous cycle, and under that previous cycle, we received a submission for 6 5310 projects and 1 JARC project, and we were able to fund 5 of those 5310 projects and the JARC project. In terms of what this call for projects looks like and how it differs from the last round, it's largely identical to our last round of projects. There have been some changes made to the scoring to reflect language preferences that have been passed down through executive orders. We have added some additional information at the request of the City of Asheville to request more information on previous system performance, and that includes the number of rides provided by the system and the number of volunteers engaged, as well as asking for preparatory information relative to the use of indirect cost plans. Just to provide a brief overview of 5310, 5310 generally speaking is to provide funding to operate a public transit service to improve mobility for seniors and individuals with disabilities. And that comes in a variety of formats, including the use of volunteer and voucher programs. This year, we have $486,152 available to the Asheville UTA under Section 5310 funds. $48,615,000 is the admin fee for that, and the remaining Section 5310 fund after admin fees is $437,537. Under JARC, JARC is a program designed for the development and maintenance of transportation services designed to transport welfare recipients and eligible low-income individuals to and from jobs and activities related to their employment. It's a 10% set aside of the region's 5307 allocation, and this year we have $420,732 allocated to the Asheville UTA for the use of JARC funding. So the overall call for projects, if recommended by the board, is we would go to the board for approval on October 16th. That would open the call for projects, which would run until January 15th. On February the 4th, the prioritization subcommittee would review the application to make recommendations on the scores to the TCC and board. On February 12th, the TCC would approve the 5310 and JARC project selection made by the prioritization subcommittee to be forwarded to the board on February 19th, and the board would vote to approve the project selection at that time. And then on March 19th, the MPO board would approve any TIP amendments for the 5310 and JARC projects that are required. So at this time, are there any questions? And just to go over briefly the next steps. The next step is the TCC recommendation to approve the call for projects happening today. The board will approve the call for projects. The release of application materials will happen on the website on the 16th of October if that goes according to plan. And then we will send out information to the previous applicants and interested parties to let them know that the application cycle is open again.
I'm sorry, the anticipated opening date is the 30th, is that right?
For the application on October 16th. Okay.
Okay, does anyone have any questions for Daisy? Otherwise, let's have a motion to kick this to the board.
I provide a motion.
This is
Thank
Jody
you.
Ferguson. I have a comment. This is Jody Ferguson. I just want the record to show that Haywood County is not eligible to participate because we're no longer part of the urbanized area for these projects.
Thank you, Jody. Lucy, did you make a motion?
Yes, I did.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Steve. Asha?
Sorry, just to confirm, so does that mean that we don't crawl on those? Okay, we do.
Yeah, we do. We
Oh,
still
you
do.
still need your vote.
Yep.
Sorry. All right. Art, Lucy Crown?
Aye.
Not Art. Supposed to be City of Asheville. Sorry about that, Lucy.
I'll answer to anything. Aye.
Biltmore Forest, Harry Buckner.
Aye.
Buncombe County, William Haas.
Approved.
Buncombe Transit, Chloe Donahoe.
Approve.
TPD, Daniel Sellers.
Approved.
Flat Rock, Pat Christie.
Approved.
Fletcher, Eric Rufa.
Aye.
Haywood County, Jody Ferguson.
Aye.
Henderson County, Autumn Radcliffe.
Approve.
Apple Country Public Transit, Jana Gianculli.
Aye.
Mills River, Michael Malachek.
Approve.
RPO, Vicki Eastland.
Aye.
Weaverville, James Eller.
Approved.
NCDOT Division 13, Doug Phillips.
Aye.
NCDOT Division 14, Steve Williams.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
Thank you, everybody. And for our last business item, call for planning projects. Okay.
There we go. Okay, so today we're talking about a call for planning projects. This is something that we used to do fairly annually. It's been a few years due to kind of the stack of planning projects that we've had, but our planning projects are starting to come down, and so it's a good time to hold the next call for projects. So in general, how much money are we talking about making available, and where does that come from? In general, that comes from the MPO's SCBGDA funds, or the Surface Transportation Block Grant Direct Allotment, that is flexed over to planning funds. The MPO receives a little more than $4.5 million a year in SCBGDA. And in general, we have been making $500,000 available for special studies. But to note, these are the same source of funds that make up the majority of capital projects that are funded through the MPO. The type of project that would be eligible for a call for planning projects in general are feasibility studies. That's the vast majority of what has been funded in the past. Generally, a lot of greenway feasibility studies. I will note those are a very, very good idea if you are considering going after federal funds in the relatively near future. We've had a few projects now that have gotten into the design phase and found that their original alignment is not feasible, which is costly and leads to complications for next steps. That is something I highly recommend for local government projects where people might want to apply for funds in the near future. Also, small area plans, transit master plans. We funded the City of Asheville's transit master plan back in 2018, I believe. Corridor studies, I think those can be very helpful both for transportation as well as other considerations that the local government might make, especially around land uses along the corridor. Economic impact studies, traffic studies, limited engineering design in general is limited up to 15% design, and multimodal studies. Who is eligible to apply for these funds? In general, that's member governments of the MPO. So all of the local governments that you all represent would be eligible. To note, there is a 20% local match required, and no in-kind. The way the funding works is funds are spent down, and then reimbursement is requested at 80%. And so there is no in-kind that is generally acceptable for these funds. And in terms of project evaluation, what we are recommending is a general mix, looking at regional influence. So trying to look at projects that would have a greater impact than on just one jurisdiction. One that also looking at project readiness. So how close is the project implementation? Strategic alignment with the MPO's plans, advancing multimodal access, and being in line with the MPO's preferred growth scenario. Also with scoring, our plan is that submissions would be scored using scaling. So we would be having the top rated projects get the highest number of project or points and move down. That would be evaluated by MPO staff as a first step. But as we always say, scoring will be used as a recommendation. Final decision on project selection is up to the board and the TCC. And I'll also note that we recommend no more than 2 studies being programmed through this call for projects. So if we receive a number of lower cost studies, I still recommend capping it at 2. Just due to staff capacity. Each of these studies requires a considerable amount of work, especially to be in line with federal and state requirements. And whether that's MPO staff managing or local government staff, there still is a staff burden on that. So limiting that to 2 per this call is something that we would recommend. In terms of next steps, we are looking for TCC recommendation to open the call for projects. After that, the board would consider approval. We would open the call to our member governments later this month with applications due on the eve of New Year's Eve. January or February, projects would be selected, and March projects would be programmed into the UPWP. But in general, this is a service that we've made available to our member governments to utilize planning funds, see that at the stage for identifying needs through more master planning efforts or for feasibility studies to try to prep projects for future funding. But for today, we are looking for a recommendation to open the call for projects. Any questions?
When do y'all hope for these projects to be completed by?
So that's a really good question. In general, any project that would be selected would be added to the FY27 UPWP, meaning they couldn't start work until July 1st at the earliest. But our general practice has been having 2-year contracts with our member governments to get the studies done by. And so hopefully we would keep to that time frame, but I'll note there's contract extension text.
Thank you. Are there any further questions for Tristan? Otherwise, a motion.
I'll make a motion that we recommend the call for planning projects to the TAC.
And many times, thank you, Steve.
I'll second that, Mike with Mills River.
Thank you, Mike.
Trying to make sure I have the name right. All right. Asheville, Lucy Crown.
Aye.
Fulton Forest, Harry Buckner.
Aye.
Johnson County, William Hine.
Approved.
Buncombe Transit, Chloe Donahoe.
Approve.
EPD, Daniel Sellers.
Approved, even though it's going to create a lot of work for me.
Flat Rock, Pat Christie.
Approved.
Fletcher, Eric Rufa.
Aye.
Haywood County, Jody Ferguson.
Aye.
Anderson County, Autumn Ratcliffe.
Approve.
Apple Country Public Transit, Jana Bianculli.
Aye.
Mills River, Michael Malachek.
Approve.
RPO, Vicki Eastland.
Aye.
Weaverville, James Eller.
Approved.
NCDOT Division 13, Doug Phillips. NCDOT Division 14, Steve Williams. The ayes have it.
Thank you, everyone. That's our last vote. So thank you, Asha, in particular. And with that, though, we will kick off to our informational items. And if you want to introduce it.
Yeah, so this is a follow-up item from last month. So last month, as you may recall, we talked about potential express lanes or toll lanes on I-40 between exit 44 and exit 27. That came to the MPO previously in 2024, where we provided a letter of support for NCDOT to look at the concept of tolling I-40 in that section. That study was completed by NCDOT early last month, and that came to the MPO, TCC, and board for consideration with this round of prioritization. And so, as you may recall, we took a vote last month on what we should do with that, because any kind of tolled facility being entered into prioritization has to come from the MPO, and CDOT is not allowed to submit that. And so the TCC voted to put in I-40 widening from exit 44 to exit 27 as a general widening for now, with tolling considerations to take place through no later than January. The board concurred with the recommendation from the TCC, and so we are kind of in the stage right now of determining whether or not that submittal for I-40 widening, whether or not the MPO would prefer for that project to be a general widening of I-40, or if the preference for that would be for the widening to be adding toll lane facilities. So to provide more information, we have David Roy from the NC Turnpike Authority. David is the Director of Innovative Finance. Hopefully I got that right. So David will most likely be getting to know us pretty well over the next couple of months as the TCC and board deliberate. So today, we're planning on having information made available, and we can see whether or not folks are comfortable taking a vote at our next meeting in November, or if there's more information that's needed for a follow-up presentation. But with that, David, please take it away. I will pull up your slides in a second.
You can drive for us here.
I'll do my best.
Well, thank you again. Again, my name is David Roy, and I appreciate you having me here. As we talked about last month, we provided kind of a high-level overview of the results of the analysis and promised to be back before you this month with a much more detailed discussion, and that's what we're going to do today. I believe also online, Carly Swanson, she is the Director of Innovative Delivery. Together, we make up the Office of Innovative Finance and Delivery, and essentially our role is to help MPOs, RPOs across the state that are interested in considering alternative financing, namely tolling, as a means to help accelerate or potentially accelerate critical infrastructure projects. So she was not able to be here today in person, but she's online and can certainly help support the conversation if needed. You want to jump to the next slide. So just quickly, I'll provide a brief overview of the Turnpike Authority, who we are, how we fit into the equation. We'll have a discussion about express lanes, what they are, what they're intended to do, and then obviously we'll turn to the analysis for the proposed I-40 widening. Slide. And you can go ahead and jump. So just a quick overview of the Turnpike Authority. The Turnpike Authority is essentially the state's tolling arm. It was created back in 2002 as a separate entity at the time. There were 5 or 6 projects that were defined in legislation that the Turnpike Authority was to pursue. That all changed in 2009, 2010 timeframe The Turnpike Authority was actually rolled under the department, so now we operate effectively as a business unit of NCDOT. The Turnpike does still maintain an autonomous board that is responsible for debt issuance, toll rate setting, things like that directly related to toll projects. Also around the same time, those 5 or 6 projects that were defined in legislation largely went away, and now projects that are pursued as toll projects go through the standard STIP prioritization process, just like every other project across the state. And we'll talk more about that in just a minute. A couple key things to note, and I think Tristan already mentioned one of them, but we'll continue to harp on this or hit on this. First state law, toll projects must be approved by a local planning organization. The state and so the Turnpike Authority do not propose toll projects. We certainly help support in the discussion and analysis should an MPO, RPO be interested in considering tolling as an alternative, but that has to come from the local planning organization. We like to say it's one tool in the toolbox. It is certainly one option for a project, but it is not always the right option. In fact, in most cases, I would say tolling is not the right option. But where it does make sense, it certainly can help on several fronts. And obviously, we'll talk about that more on the I-40 project here in a second. I think another important point to note, and that was raised, I believe, at one of the meetings last month, was that toll revenue that is derived from a turnpike project or a toll project must stay on that project or a contiguous toll facility. So it can certainly be used to support the debt issuance that is issued to help support construction of the project. It can obviously help support operations and maintenance of the project. And for an express lane project, we typically have defined that as fence to fence. So even though tolling only occurs in the express lanes, it could also support maintenance of the adjacent general purpose lanes. But it can be diverted to be used for another project in another region across the state. Next slide. So just quickly, the Turnpike really is involved at every stage of the life cycle of a project, from project development, obviously what we're talking about here today, all the way through the financing of projects, through toll operations, maintenance, really soup to nuts. Our job is to take a project from inception to see it through and then maintain that project once it's open and operating. Next slide, please. And just a quick look across the state at some of the projects that are currently open and operating, and also those that are under construction, and as well as a number of projects that are being considered. And this map is quickly expanding. I think if we had looked at this just a handful of years ago, there might have been 3 dots on this map. And you can see, obviously, this region is not alone with rising costs and constrained finances. More and more regions are turning to alternative structures to help accelerate some of their critical infrastructure projects. So open to traffic, toll projects that are open to traffic across the state. The Triangle Expressway system in Raleigh is comprised of a portion of the outer loop, the NC 540 outer loop around the greater Raleigh area. About 2/3 of that project is already open and operating. The final leg of that is under construction, scheduled to open later this year. Also outside of Charlotte, the Monroe Expressway, bypassing US 74 heading east out of Charlotte, is open to traffic, as well as the first express lane project in the state, the I-77 North Express Lane, heading approximately 26 miles north, heading north out of Charlotte. Also about to open in the Charlotte region, the I-485 South Express Lanes, 485 is the outer loop around the greater Charlotte area. The first segment of that is scheduled to open in the next couple of months. A number of projects also under development across the state. Mid-Croatuck Bridge in the northeast corner of the state, as well as the I-77 South Express Lanes, also in Charlotte, basically an extension of the existing express lanes. Also an extension of the currently under construction I-485 South Express Lanes heading west up to the airport. For those familiar with the Charlotte region, and US 74 heading east out of Charlotte are all express lane corridors that are under development. And then you can see a number of projects across the state also under consideration. A couple on the coast, Cape Fear Memorial Bridge replacement project, several in the Raleigh area, Capitol Boulevard 540, and then obviously this project that we're talking about today, the I-40 widening project heading west out of Asheville. Next slide. So a little bit about the Quick Pass program. This is the Turnpike's customer-facing brand. It is the transponder that you will see in windows that are a means to pay your tolls. You can think EasyPass, NC Quick Pass is a member of the EasyPass network. So if you sign up for an NC Quick Pass as a way to pay your tolls, you can use that basically from Maine to Florida, any member agency of EasyPass, and you can see some stats there as of earlier this year, over 2.5 million customers, and we distributed over 2 million transponders across the state and into South Carolina. Next slide. So there are a couple of ways to pay tolls on toll facilities in North Carolina. One is that NC Quick Pass. So if you sign up for a prepaid transponder-based account, you receive 50% off of all tolls in the state of North Carolina, and you can also use that to pay your tolls up and down the East Coast. If you choose not to sign up for a Quick Pass or a prepaid program, you can still pay your toll via what we call the bill by mail program. It's a postpaid program, so we'll send you a bill in the mail, and you can pay in any number of ways. So in the state of North Carolina, there are no violators. Anybody can access the toll roads, whether you have a Quick Pass or not. It is just how you pay and what that toll rate is that you pay. Next slide, please. So turning a little more to a discussion on express lanes, obviously that is what is being proposed or being considered for the I-40 widening project. Generally speaking, there are two types of roadway charging that you will see. Obviously, you have bridges, tunnels, but looking at kind of traditional roadways, you have your expressway facilities. These are all tolled facilities where all the lanes of the facility are tolled. This is similar to the Triangle Expressway, to the Monroe Expressway. In the Charlotte region, typically toll rates are fixed. They don't vary by time of day or congestion. And in the state of North Carolina, it is a legislative requirement that there must be a non-tolled alternative route. So in the case of an expressway facility, it would be an alternate route in close proximity. So for example, in the Raleigh region, the Triangle Expressway, the adjacent route would be NC55 and NC54. Compare that or contrast that to an express lane facility, which you see on the right, where only certain lanes of a corridor are tolled. In this case, it would be the additional capacity that's being proposed. So those lanes are tolled using dynamic pricing, and they do vary throughout the day, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. This is, again, similar to the I-77 North Express lanes in the Charlotte region, as well as the I-485 express lanes that are slated to open in the next couple of months. In this case, obviously, the non-tolled route would simply be the adjacent general purpose lanes that are still in existence when the express lane facility opens. Next slide. So why are folks considering express lanes as an option or an alternative for critical widening projects across the country? And you know, I think probably most folks have heard the adage that you can't build yourself out of congestion. Express lanes, managed lanes are seen as a way to effectively future-proof a corridor. No matter what growth looks like in the region in the future, there is an alternative that can provide a reliable travel time option for folks. And not just for folks necessarily that are paying the toll to utilize the lanes, but also for transit vehicles, emergency responders, in certain cases, rideshare programs, or people with vehicles with 3 or more passengers in their car. So, it is an option that it doesn't necessarily relieve congestion in a corridor, but it does help manage congestion and provide a reliable travel time option for folks utilizing those lanes. And then, of course, obviously, tolling is introduced, and that does introduce a revenue component that can help fund both operations and maintenance of the lanes, and also bring dollars to bear to support construction and potentially help accelerate critical projects. Next slide, please. So again, the way that the lanes are managed, the way that we are able to ensure a reliable travel time is through dynamic pricing. That means, unlike an expressway facility, pricing does vary based on congestion in the corridor. So at peak periods, you will likely see higher toll rates in the lanes. That's obviously to ensure that we're able to maintain the operational speed of no less than 45 miles per hour in the express lanes, and that's a federally mandated requirement for express lanes or managed lanes facilities. Next slide. I think what we are seeing, not just in North Carolina, but across the country, is a lot more acceptance of priced managed lanes. You know, they've proven their effectiveness and that they kind of do what they're intended to do. And we have seen folks are willing to pay and support express lanes kind of across the board, and that's kind of bared out here in a recent study HNTB produced. Obviously, if people perceive a value, see a value, they're willing to pay for that. And if you go to the next slide, I think we have a map that shows a recent map looking across the country of express lane facilities, both open and operating, but also those that are under development. Obviously, you can see a number in North Carolina, but also in our neighboring states. Tennessee is pursuing their first express lane or choice lanes project. You also see a number in the Georgia, the Atlanta area, and really all across the country. I believe at this point, more states than not have an express lane facility that is either open or under development. Next slide. Just a couple of case studies, because again, you know, the intent of express lanes is not necessarily to alleviate all congestion, recognizing that that's likely not possible, but to help support or manage congestion in an already crowded corridor. This is a case study for the I-77 North Express Lane project. It was developed by through a public-private partnership with I-77 Mobility Partners. It opened fully to traffic in November of 2019. Great timing for that, obviously. So challenge getting data in the early days, obviously, with COVID. But what we are seeing today is that almost 400,000 unique drivers utilize the express lanes every month. That means 400,000 drivers that are in the express lanes as opposed to the general purpose lane or some other facility in the region. And what you often see is that anytime you provide extra capacity, either general widening or an express lane, that draws additional traffic to the corridor. That was certainly seen on 77 North. So what we've seen on 77 North, I think at this point is closer to 15% higher volumes in the corridor when compared to pre-construction levels. But despite that, you're seeing improvements in travel times, not just in the express lanes, but also in the general purpose lanes, because you are pulling people out of the general purpose lanes into the express lanes. You are seeing increased travel times in the general purpose lanes for those that are not choosing to pay the toll. And at least based on 2024 analysis, the travel times in the general purpose lanes during the peak period had increased 30 to 40% compared to pre-construction levels. And you know, express lanes are not necessarily something most folks use every month. In fact, we see that oftentimes they're utilized, you know, if you need to get to a meeting or you're late for a practice or picking a kid up from school. On average, and this is consistent with what we see across the country, customers will utilize the lanes 1, 2, 3 times a month, and that's certainly consistent with what you see on 77 North. On average, customers utilize the lanes about 3 times per month. Next slide. Looking kind of across the country at various express lane facilities, again, similar narrative. When you add capacity, when you add express lanes, you see improvement throughout the corridor, not just in travel times in the express lane, also the general purpose lanes, but you also see a reduction in crashes and fatal crashes. So, you know, for example, I-394 out of Minnesota saw a reduction of about 5% in overall crashes on the corridor. I-95 in Florida, reduction of 16% in fatal crashes once they opened the express lanes. In Washington State, I-405, you saw, again, similar to 77 North, an increase in overall traffic through the corridor when the express lanes opened, over 20% increase in overall traffic. Despite that, obviously drivers utilizing the express lane saw a significant increase in travel time savings for utilizing the express lanes, but the general purpose lanes also improved. And then I-405 also Again, kind of consistent with that theme. This is not something that folks utilize every day. You use it when you need to, and you know, we'll continue to take the general purpose lanes when it makes sense. Generally speaking, customers use the express lanes a couple times a month. Almost half of the users of 405 only utilize the lanes once in a year. So it's available, but not something that most folks choose to take every day. And the next slide. All right. I know I ran through that quickly, so maybe I'll pause there before we turn to the tolling analysis. If there are any questions about Turnpike, who we are, express lanes in general.
I would ask, what's the difference in capacity? Let's say, like, you have an 8-lane typical section that would be open to everybody, as opposed to saying an 8-lane typical section, but 4 of those lanes are occupancy toll lanes. What is the capacity difference? Because obviously 8 lanes available to everybody is going to increase capacity more than 4 lanes available to some people.
Obviously, the answer is it varies. Every project is going to be different, and we are required to maintain that 45-mile federally mandated speed, so we do have to limit capacity in the lane. Generally speaking, you could be looking at 1,500 vehicles per hour per express lane. So there is a reduction compared to a general purpose lane, but not as material as some might think.
Yeah. One stress, this is not a I'm for or against, just there is a capacity difference, and if your goal is to increase capacity overall, there's the trade-offs.
Yeah. Certainly a general widening doesn't have the same limitations of express lanes. It also doesn't necessarily provide reliable travel into the future.
And it doesn't provide the revenue to maintain the corridor.
All right. Well, we want to carry on. So turning to this analysis, again, I think Tristan kind of teed this up, but in early 2024, the Land of Sky and French Broad River RPO requested the department and the Turnpike Authority to study express lanes for the planned widening project on I-40, again, heading west out of Asheville. The first step in that was a financial feasibility analysis through a tool that was developed internally within DOT. What that showed was that we believe this project warranted additional study for a number of reasons. We did, at that point, contract with Stantec, who is one of our traffic and revenue consultants, on the sketch level or level 1 traffic and revenue forecast for the project. Stantec did look at, as we talked about last month, both 1 express lane and 2 express lanes options, so 1 express lane in each direction and 2 express lanes in each direction. In the 2 express lane option, we did, in the analysis, allow large commercial vehicles, trucks, to utilize the lanes in the 1 express lane scenario. Typically, you would allow truck traffic in the lanes. Now, I will caution, the TNR didn't look at the project, obviously, for technical feasibility as far as geometry, safety, topography, anything like that, assessing the viability of trucks. So certainly a lot more study would be required with that respect, but at least from a TNR forecast, it did allow trucks to utilize the lanes in the 2-lane study. Once we had the traffic and revenue forecast, that of course helped inform the financial feasibility analysis for the project. That's where you incorporate the cost estimates, operations estimates, et cetera. Next slide, please. Yeah, I think folks are pretty familiar with the project, but again, this is approximately 16 miles from exit 44 to exit 27. For programming purposes, prioritization purposes, previously, I believe it's been broken into 3 segments, A through C there. Of course, for our purposes, we looked at the corridor as a whole. You wouldn't likely pursue an express lane project in smaller segments like that, so we'd really be looking at the entire 16 miles. Next slide. And just a little more on the traffic and revenue analysis that was conducted. Again, this was a sketch level traffic and revenue analysis, so it's really a 40,000 foot view. It largely took assumptions in the model, already existing models when they were doing their modeling for the express lanes. Again, looking at 1 and 2 express lanes options. One kind of key consideration when you're thinking about an express lane is how you price the lanes, and that's certainly obviously a big topic, not just in North Carolina, but across the country. You can kind of think about it as what customers' willingness to pay. If you have 10 customers willing to pay $1, or 1 customer willing to pay $20. From a revenue maximizing perspective, you potentially charge $20. Obviously, this is an egregious example, but I think you understand the concept. So one kind of key consideration is how you price the lanes. Anytime the Turnpike Authority looks at a project, we've kind of termed it throughput optimization. So it is not a revenue maximizing model where you're looking to charge the highest toll rate possible. Instead, you're looking to charge a rate that allows you to efficiently and effectively operate the lanes and kind of encourage as much throughput as you possibly can, while still, of course, maintaining the minimum speed requirements in the lanes. We did identify through this study some seasonality trends for the corridor. You can foresee those there, not surprisingly, I'm sure. Peak period traffic occurs in the summer and into the fall, off-peak in the winter months, and kind of what we term shoulder peak in the spring and later in the fall. Next slide, please. So what did the tolling analysis show? Of course, as we kind of talked about at a high level, again, last month, in both scenarios, the tolling analysis did show that revenues or forecasted revenues generated from the project would be sufficient to not just cover all of the operations and maintenance costs, but also help contribute some, at least some, to the capital costs or financing of the project. And this kind of picture is very consistent with what we've seen across the state and all the toll projects that have been analyzed and the toll projects that have been open to date. And very few scenarios across the country, particularly standalone projects, does toll revenue support 100% of the capital cost or the construction cost of the project from day one. And again, that's certainly the case for all projects that have been pursued in North Carolina to date. And you can see the breakdown there in the chart below between the 1 express lane and the 2 express lane options. From a 1 express lane perspective, project financing costs approximately $700 million. Bond R, which is essentially the financing capacity, a little over $200 million, leaving a funding gap of around $475 million. Now, again, I caution that this is a very high-level estimate, and as a result of this being a sketch-level estimate, we did request Stantec produce a range of results. You can kind of think of it as a P5, P80 scenarios, if you will. So what we're reflecting here is kind of the midpoint of the range, and things, of course, like the interest rate environment, market environment at the time can significantly impact the results of the analysis. You know, right now we're hovering around 10-year historical highs in long-term interest rates. For a kind of high-level example, you know, 100 basis point or 1% reduction in interest rates, just like in your mortgage, would significantly reduce your debt service and could result in significantly more capacity. In this case, I think to the tune of around $100 million. So this is, again, very preliminary. If this were to move forward, we would have to, and we would certainly continue to refine these numbers as we move through the process. In the 2 express lane scenario, again, this is the scenario that allowed commercial vehicles. Of course, you saw a higher project financing cost by adding the 2nd express lane, current estimate around $850 million. But you also saw a significant increase in the financing capacity. And again, that is a result of allowing those commercial vehicles. Typically, commercial vehicles pay a multiple of the toll rate that a passenger vehicle pays, so they can and do generate significant revenue for a number of toll facilities. So, for example, you may see something in the neighborhood of 5% of overall traffic, you know, making up about around 5% of overall traffic in a corridor, but they could generate 20 to 30% of the overall revenue from the express lanes. And that's very consistent with what we see here. So a very similar funding gap in the 2 scenarios. And when I say funding gap, that is the funding that would still need to come from the STIP or from prioritization. Next slide, please. how does or how can tolling and really alternative funding or financing help a project as it moves through prioritization? Of course, one big component of the score that is received is based on benefit cost, and really what is it going to cost to deliver the project? What is the cost to the state? So anytime you are able to reduce the cost of the project to the state, that helps or can help increase the project score through prioritization. And we have we have an example of that, I think, on the next slide. So this is a project that, I think I'll move to the next slide. There we go. Just to give you an example of kind of how that could work, this is a project that went through prioritization in P7. At the time, the MPO in the area requested the project be scored as both a non-toll project and a toll project. So you can see kind of how that plays out down below. As a non-toll project, the cost to the state was the full cost of in this case, the replacement bridge. At the time, $437 million. As a result, it scored about a 60 out of 100 in the statewide mobility tier. Because tolling was able to generate sufficient revenue to help bring bonding capacity to the table and reduce the overall cost to the state, in this case, that cost to the state, or that gap, was reduced to approximately $85 million, and that helped increase the score to a little over 82, and was therefore, as a toll project, funded for construction. So in P7, just to give you reference, the lowest score to receive funding, the statewide tier, was 81. And to give you a little perspective, I asked the spot folks to look at how many projects we're talking about here. Between the 82 and the 60, I think there were over 200 projects totaling around $30 billion. So there's obviously a ton of competition for those statewide dollars. And just to give folks an understanding of how the general widening project for I-40 scored in the most recent round of prioritization, you can see the scores broken down there below in that last bullet. The A section scored the best at a 78. B and C obviously followed that. And again, I asked them to look what that meant as far as the number of projects it was kind of competing against. In P7, there were 14 projects that scored higher than the A project before you got to the lowest funded project of 81.2, and totaling about $1 billion. So potential, obviously all hypothetical for P8. As a general widening, you can potentially see the A project funded in the developmental step without some meaningful change, unlikely that B or C would score in this round of prioritization. Next slide, please. I think one important thing that we touched on last month, but I want to talk a little bit more about today, obviously recognizing constrained funding. The General Assembly a number of years ago wanted to incentivize regions to look at alternative funding solutions, and one of the ways they have done that is through the implementation of bonus allocation. And effectively what that is that any region that is able to bring alternative funding to the table and reduce the overall cost of the state is eligible for up to $100 million in bonus allocation that can be used for other priority projects in the region. So in both scenarios, and all scenarios we ran, this project would be eligible, would likely be eligible for the full $100 million in bonus allocation should it move forward as a tolled express lane project. All right, next slide. Wanted to provide kind of an illustrative schedule if we, again, were to move forward as a express lane project, and we really should have, a really big asterisk on this slide. This is kind of our best estimate with where we stand today. If this were to move forward as an express lane project and it was picked up in this round of prioritization. I believe the STIP is, the 2837 STIP is anticipated to be finalized sometime in the fall of 2027. At that point, funding would be made available to begin project development and NEPA efforts. You could expect a 2 or 3 year project development process, followed by 5 to 6 years of construction. So we're looking at potential, and again, huge asterisk, but potential project opening in the mid-2030s. Now, one of the potential benefits that tolling can bring to a project is that it doesn't have to wait for all of the state funding to be available before we can begin certain activities. So unlike traditional projects where the project has to wait for funding in the STIP to be available before it can begin right-of-way acquisition, utility, relocation, obviously construction, oftentimes a toll project can leverage toll revenue supported debt or financing to help begin some of those projects years in advance of when the project would actually be showing STIP funding available. So for example, the phase 2 project in the NC 540 phase 2 project in the Raleigh region is under construction today, anticipated opening in 2028. I don't believe STIP funds are allocated to that project until 2027, so it will largely be completed with that project before any of the state funds would be required. So that kind of helps us hold our schedules, if you will, as opposed to having to wait for all state funding to be available before you can begin certain activities. I think that kind of wraps things up. Yeah, just a summary of what we've already discussed. I think, again, the key point here is we are here to help support in the decision making. The MPO, the RPO obviously knows what is the best for their region. So we're not advocating for a particular path forward or a particular project, but we're certainly happy to help support in any way we can as you move through the decision-making process.
Thank you.
I'll pause and take a drink.
While David gets a beverage there, does anyone have any questions?
I have a question. The slide, that's not necessarily for you, David, but for the MPO. The slide that shows the toll versus non-toll facility and those scores. I wonder if we could request from the spot office if we could get a preliminary toll versus non-toll score before we have a vote on this. It might be helpful. I don't know if they could do that or not.
We can make the ask.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
This example, I would, and certainly make the ask, I will say this example, the project was actually submitted as both a toll project and a non-toll project. So if you look in P7, when the initial scores were released, you would see this. So in this case, the MPO obviously submitted the toll project. I believe the division submitted the non-toll version of the project. But
and that's probably what we would have done if the MPO submitted the toll project, but it wasn't voted that way. So.
Right, but it wasn't P7, so presumably we'd just be asking them to change the cost input into their scoring.
Right.
Terrific. Further questions?
Yes, this is Jody Ferguson. I have a few questions. The first one is that because he said operations and maintenance would be included, that means that if there were express lanes, they would be a toll forevermore. That's something that wouldn't expire after so many years or anything like that.
In legislation, when the debt is repaid, tolls must be removed.
Okay.
Obviously, one of the purposes of tolling a managed lane is to ensure that reliable travel time option. So if you remove the tolls 30, 40 years down the road, you would remove that reliable travel time option, but that will certainly be a discussion for hopefully not me 30 years from now.
Me either, I hope. So the other question that I have, and Steve might be able to speak to this more than anybody else. So we have multiple bridge projects going on in Haywood County at this time. Very necessary. Just been a tremendous inconvenience kind of here lately for the traveling public. So will the bridge work that's being done now accommodate 1 or 2 express lanes, or would that have to be included in a project?
My understanding is, Jody, that all those bridges are, you want to?
No, I'm not saying one, yeah. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
That the bridges will accommodate 3 lanes in each direction?
Yeah, one additional lane.
Right, but not 2 lanes.
Okay. And
So
then,
the bridges are that.
the last question that I have is that, as we come out of Buncombe County, so traveling west, as we're coming up the grade into Haywood, trucks are restricted to the right-hand lane there. If we had 2 express lanes, would they still be restricted in those areas, or would they then be able to use an express lane?
Great question. Certainly, again, our TNR analysis included trucks in the being able to use the express lanes for the full length of the facility. But certainly a lot more study would be required to ensure the viability, safety, et cetera, of doing so. So don't have an answer for you yet, but certainly we recognize that this is a unique area, and there are a lot of considerations when you look at allowing commercial vehicles to utilize express lanes.
Jody, are you asking about the non-toll lanes, as far as restriction in the non-toll lanes?
I'm just wondering if we had, let's say we ended up with 2 express lanes, and, a loaded truck is probably going to travel really slow up the grade and couldn't maintain the minimum 45 mile an hour speed limit. But an unloaded truck might be able to do that in an express lane. And I was just curious how the safety part played out on something like that. If the trucks remained restricted, or if they could, in theory, I guess, meet the minimum speed requirement that they were free to use an express lane, and would it only be one of them, or just kind of how that's worked in other places. I think our terrain and topography is unique compared to most of the projects in the rest of North Carolina, so I'm kind of just curious how some of that plays out.
I think a lot of that is to be determined. Just for additional context, the federally mandated 45-mile is an average speed over a period of time of all vehicles, so it's not looked at on an individual basis. So you could potentially, and again, I'm hypothesizing, but you could potentially look at a scenario where commercial vehicles or trucks could utilize the right-hand lane of the express lane, but be restricted to the left lane. But all of that would certainly require further study if this were to move forward.
And then I have one last question, and that is, if this is something that we choose to move forward, how does the public outreach and comment work, and how does that play into the scenario overall?
We certainly defer to the NPO as far as their standard public outreach with any project.
Yeah, so Jody, that would be handled in project development, and we'd have our standard public workshops that we have for any project that's going forward.
Okay, thank you.
All right, are there any other questions? David? Okay, well, hearing none, thank you very much for joining us, and good luck with the board. All right, with that, we'll take it to our next item from Sandy, TDM Community Friendly Workplace Program.
Okay, so my name is Sandy Broadwell. I'm the Transportation Demand Management Coordinator for Land and Sky, and we are launching a new program called Commute Friendly WNC. So for those of you who aren't familiar, Transportation Demand Management is a program that tries to reduce traffic congestion and improve air quality, and we serve all 5 counties in the MPO and RPO regions. So the Commute Friendly WNC program is a free workplace and campus certification program that basically encourages nonprofit businesses, government offices, colleges to take a more active role in supporting their multimodal students and employees. and recognizes and celebrates those organizations that try to promote carpooling, public transit, biking and walking, and things like that. So why get certified as community-friendly? It's a good recruitment and retention program that can hopefully be a good partnership between Go Mountain Commuting and all of these local businesses to try and reduce transportation as a barrier to employment and education opportunities. But the main reason that someone would want to get certified is because it unlocks a lot of programming that I can help provide for those organizations that participate. So the first of those benefits is that we would come do an on-site assessment and consultation for all of the businesses that apply to talk about what options are available and what they already have going on, and try and see how we can increase those resources to their people. I can also create a lot of campus or workplace-specific outreach materials, whether that's digital signs, flyers, or brochures, and that can be internally facing for employees or externally facing for customers and visitors, depending on what the organization wants and what sort of information they're requesting. I can also do bicycle commuting 101 lunch and learns, basically, for any organization that requests it. Just an hour-long deep dive on bicycle route selection and safety and everything that you would need to know to get started as a bicycle commuter. And similarly for riding the bus, we can teach people how to ride the bus through some hopefully fun programming, not just like a let's go ride the bus together, but like let's go do something on the bus together. So this is just an example of a flyer I have for one coming up next week. For UNCA students during their sustainability week, we're going to ride to Well Played Board Game Cafe and let the students game for a couple of hours and then ride back to campus. So this is just like a fun way to teach people how to ride the bus. I've done one also with Gibbons Gerber community, the retirement community, and we took a bunch of folks there out to eat some pizza. So we can schedule these sorts of events for any of the organizations that participate. We also can do workplace or campus-specific commuter challenges, which is basically like a team-building activity to encourage people to use multimodal transportation. And so the organization can choose how long they want the commuter challenge to last, whether that's like a week, a month, the entire year, and then reward people who use multimodal transportation the most during those time periods. And that can be like a person versus person or a department versus department, however the organization wants to set it up. We can also come table at any workplace events that are happening for like new employee orientation or a retreat or wellness fairs, anything like that. Or I can come speak to groups during events or meetings, anything like that, to talk about transportation resources that are specific to the organization. Then, of course, we would promote all of the participating organizations as a commute-friendly campus or commute-friendly workplace and talk about them at every chance we get to all of our other community partners. We're also planning on having a quarterly session for folks who are interested in the program to get together to learn more about it, and networking sessions for the participants of the program. And so these can be lunches, site visits, basically just very relaxed kind of get-togethers for the participating organizations. And I'll also offer personalized trip planning assistance for folks who work at these organizations who are interested in potentially like learning how to ride the bus or learning like what the best bike route is from their house to their workplace, if they need help with that kind of stuff, and maybe the organization isn't doing like a bus ride along or bike meeting 101, but I can still, have a call with them or an email to kind of work out what their route and schedule is going to look like. And then finally, the last benefit is grant writing assistance. If I hear about any multimodal amenities that are available to local businesses, then I would do a blast to all of our participating organizations and offer a lot of local businesses obviously don't have someone who can just sit down and write a grant. And so I can help out with those things if they become available. So there will be 3 different levels of certification, bronze, silver, and gold, depending on what sort of amenities and benefits the organizations provide. And the requirements are that it has to be a business, workplace, government office, nonprofit, or campus with a physical location in our 5 counties. And they have to, when they apply, they'll get a number of points based on the amenities they provide, so they have to get at least enough points to qualify for bronze. And then they'll have to participate in an on-site consultation, so I'll go to the business and have a sit down with them and participate in a organization-wide commuter survey so that we can figure out where their people are coming from, what they want to do, and how we can better serve them. And then promote the program at least once or twice a year on social media or on their storefront or to other employers. For organizations that apply but don't quite meet the qualifications for bronze, they'll still unlock all these same benefits, and during the consultation, we'll just create a roadmap for them on how they can improve. And the commute-friendly points that they earn is too complicated to go into in a 10-minute presentation, but basically there's different points assigned for amenities, infrastructure, incentives, benefits, policies, and then promotion and education that happen at the workplace. And we can do a deep dive on that on our website, and I can answer any questions anyone has. But the application is live now. We actually just got our first applicant yesterday, which is really exciting because the program just opened a couple of days ago. So if you are interested in applying and feel a little overwhelmed by the application or don't feel like you quite understand everything, we can schedule just like a 30-minute call and fill out the application together over the phone. We're also planning our first kind of kickoff info and networking session, which will be Monday, November 3rd, right here from 12:30 to 2, and I would highly recommend attending. There's going to be free lunch, so make sure that you register so that I can order enough catering for everyone. And that is the basic summary of the commute-friendly program. Does anyone have any questions?
Who do you recommend providing this information to at our respective organizations?
Whoever you think would be the person that would actually fill out the application. So it's like, could be an HR manager, an executive director, a sustainability coordinator, like whoever's kind of going to be taking the lead.
Can we do a regional commute challenge amongst our MPO and member governments?
Sure.
I mean, I'm not citing Buncombe County, that's not my place.
We don't have prizes, but we can say the loser will have to provide the TCC with lunch.
There we go.
Terrific. Well, thank you very much. Is there any other questions for Sandy? All right. Well, thank you very much. And finally, our MPO committee and work group update.
Sure. This is an item that came to the TCC and board back in June. So we mostly wanted to provide an update on the discussions that we've had following that. So just to note, the MPO's current work group setup, the board is ultimate decision-making body advised by the TCC. Below that are 4 different committees or work groups. There's the prioritization subcommittee, which largely focuses on the prioritization process. There's the Citizens Advisory Committee, which focuses on public involvement activities. The 5307 Subrecipients Work Group, which by and large focuses on urban transit. And there's the Hellbender Trail Work Group. We also have the LAP, or the Locally Administered Projects Work Group. We generally see that as a subset of prioritization that helps with coordination between NCDOT and local governments for those local projects. And to note, a lot of this conversation is coming from the Citizens Advisory Committee and some of the things that have been happening there. So to note, we've had the Citizens Advisory Committee since right around 2012. However, its role was changed in 2016 to focus more on the public involvement plan at the MPO and less as a general advisory committee. Since that time, I will note the Citizens Advisory Committee has really struggled with attendance and quorum since 2021. We've had a couple of different iterations of going through and soliciting applications from the general public to serve on the committee. There's been a couple of times where we've had people sign up and be assigned to the committee, but in general, the attendance has continued to struggle. Daisy, correct me if I'm wrong, we've been averaging a little over 2 participants per meeting since 2021. So we brought up the idea, or what the committee wanted to do with itself, and it voted to dissolve earlier in 2025. However, following that, the MPO board did not approve the dissolution of the committee, and a big part of the discussion was citing the lack of public involvement opportunities without the Citizens Advisory Committee. We took it back to the Citizens Advisory Committee, and they once again voted to dissolve themselves. They recommended a bike ped committee in its place, noting that there are several small bike ped committees in the region that have had limited roles that may be more interested in regional work. We did some work looking at what are the committees that other MPOs have. To note, a bike ped committee is one of the more common ones across other MPOs. A lot of the other large MPOs, FBRMPO is the Fayetteville area MPO, WAMPO is Greensboro urban area, CAMPO is capital area or around Raleigh, WIMPO, my favorite one, that's Wilmington. And so they have bike ped committees. This MPO actually formerly had a complete streets committee that served to provide complete streets recommendations on preliminary cross sections in different planning efforts. But we've had a couple of conversations with the prioritization subcommittee at this point. One thing that was brought up was adding 3 seats for the general public on the prioritization subcommittee. That was not recommended by the subcommittee. One of the things to note is it would no longer be a subcommittee if we were having general seats for the public. We also discussed adding a bike ped committee, however, that was not recommended by the subcommittee. So at this point, we still have a committee that would like itself dissolved, and we do not have another committee in its place. Any questions or comments?
I'd like to recommend that we look at the Durham Chapel Hill model where it's no committees at all. But I'll look at that. I'm just joking. So, anyone else with any sardonic or actually helpful comments? Yeah.
Can we recommend dissolution while we still consider these other options so that staff doesn't have to keep staffing a committee that no one's coming to?
We absolutely can do that, yeah.
I will make that motion that we go ahead and dissolve the public, I don't know the name of it, this public committee, and continue to discuss alternatives.
Well, unexpectedly, folks, we have a motion before us. I will allow this to happen. Does someone have a second? Steve's on the phone.
I'll second.
Yay! All right. We're running. It's okay.
Sorry, I have to reopen my Chorus spreadsheet.
Apologies, Steve. Casey, not trying to call you.
Asheville, Lucy Crown.
Aye.
Biltmore Forest, Harry Buckner. Buncombe County, William Hines. Buncombe Transit, Chloe Donahoe. TPD, Daniel Sellers.
Aye.
Flat Rock, Pat Christie.
Aye.
Fletcher, Eric Rufa.
Aye.
Haywood County, Jody Ferguson. Henderson County, Autumn Radcliffe.
Approve.
Apple Country Public Transit, Jana Bianculli.
Aye.
Mills River, Michael Malachek.
Approve.
RPO, Vicki Eastland.
Aye.
Weaverville, James Eller. NCDOT Division 13, Doug Phillips.
Aye.
NCDOT Division 14, Steve Williams.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Thank you all, and hopefully, Asha, you won't have to do that again. With that, we'll kick it off to regular updates, and Division 13.
All right, Division 13 updates, as far as our project development updates, those are largely unchanged since last time. We've got them listed if anybody wants to look over them or has any questions. But as far as construction progress, on 4700, the I-26 project, the Blue Ridge Parkway Bridge is now open, and they've started demolition of the old bridge. Expected to take 4 to 6 weeks to complete demolition, and beginning on the week of October 20th, they will be doing nighttime closures with detours to facilitate that work. Also, on I-40, on the 2513, they're in phase 2 of widening and rehabilitating the outside travel lanes. Reductions in place both directions, and they're continuing with substructure on the railroad bridge. One of the last updates, Haywood Road, the contractor proposed a delayed start on that to limit the amount of time that pedestrians and motoring public would be impacted by the project. They have now revised their project schedule with a start date of November. Should be starting there. And last thing I want to mention, though it's not technically in the French Broad MPO area, it does somewhat impact. Division 13 opened our first permanent Helene Bridge replacement this week. Secretary Johnson came and did the ribbon cutting, and it was at the Baxter Healthcare Facility, which produces about 60% of the IV solutions for North America. So heading in the right direction.
Thank you. Any questions for Doug? All right, Steve.
All right.
Or Hannah said.
So, project development, same projects you've been seeing for a while since we haven't added anything to STIP. I did want to point out there is a bridge that I added. It's about the 5th one down. Replace Haywood Bridge over Jonathan Creek. That's just for your information in case anybody asks about that. Otherwise, it's the same projects you've been seeing for quite a few years on there now. A reminder that French Broad River MPO's website does have these updates. It's on the agenda and minutes page, so if you see anything as you're looking over them, reach out to us. Also, we have District 2, District 1 engineer, and our division engineer here today, so if you have any questions right now, great time to ask. Construction side of things, there are a couple of bridges that got added on here. I think it's the 5th one down, State Road is Coal Creek Road, Bald Creek Road, and Evans Cove Road. That's the 3 bridges that were left that have been started. And then also, I think it's 6 down, it's on Coleman Mountain Road. That's another bridge project that left recently. In Henderson County, you'll notice the Acoustic Trail date there has expired. That just hasn't been updated yet. And of course, there was substantial Hurricane Helene damage to that construction project. And once they get all that figured out, they'll we'll update that completion date. One other thing that MPO staff had an inquiry about a safety project in Haywood County on Delwood Road between 2374 and US 276. That's actually 2 contracts, and it's going to be 3 pedestrian crosses. One of them's actually on Lakeshore Drive. There's going to be a signal there with pedestrian crossings. And there's also one at Golf Course Road and Houston Village Road, pedestrian crossing at each of those. The wrench in that is the project did let, but there's some utility issues with Duke Energy. We're having weekly meetings with Duke to try and work that out, but we don't have a date yet of when their utility relocation plans will be finished, and we can't start construction until that happens. So I'll keep you informed on that, but that's where that is right now for the Haywood County folks. Any questions for Division 14?
Thank you, Steve. I know that's a very important project, especially following the pedestrian fatalities out there.
All right. If there's no questions for Steve, we'll kick it over to Daniel.
Hi, good morning. The news that probably everybody has already heard is that leadership has changed at NCDOT. The former Secretary of Transportation, Joey Hopkins, announced his retirement effective October 1st. And his replacement, Daniel Johnson, has taken over. And I haven't noticed any hiccups in the transition, but if he does show up to a meeting, we'll have to remind him there are some other Daniels around already. As the vision's already mentioned, 1 year updates from Helene. I pulled the latest overall estimate for state infrastructure, and damages are ranging up to about $5 billion over 6,500 different locations and bridges. And while we're still working to get permanent fixes, temporary fixes are out at over 98% of all closures. And more traditional things up my alley, statewide freight plan, I've mentioned, has kicked off before. Their website now has a mailing list, sign up form available, and if you do an internet search, I'm sure you can find it. And you can get regular updates either through email or text just by filling out the website. Since we were talking tolls, I pulled some toll news from around the state. NC 540 extension in Raleigh is a 6-lane, 18-mile freeway around Raleigh, southern part of Raleigh. And it just celebrated its first full year of operations with 130 million different transactions, which averages out to about 72,000 vehicles per month. And finally, we mentioned the North Carolina Transportation Summit. That, of course, was last month. But videos are online if anybody wants to get caught up on everything that was talked about. That's it for me. Any questions?
Thank you, Daniel. Let's kick it over to staff for subcommittee.
Okay, subcommittee reports are available in your packet. We'll jump straight into legislative. Hopefully this doesn't shock anyone. There's a federal shutdown. What we've been told at this point is FHWA and FTA are expected to continue operations as normal, at least for the next several months. And to note, part of that is that their appropriations come separately from general funds. However, I will note that shutdown or no shutdown, FHWA staff has been reduced by 25% since January. I believe that figure is higher in North Carolina, but I don't have that figure. That's just anecdotally. FTA staff is down 28% since January. So shutdown or no shutdown, things have been operating differently at FHWA and FTA. But either way, they are expected to continue as they have in the last few months. Some of the agencies that are being impacted is FRA and FAA. One thing to note, especially for our region, is the passenger rail project is likely being delayed. Phase 2 of the passenger rail project was expected to kick off this month. And to note that phase 2 was to get into service planning for that corridor. That still is not funded for implementation, as a reminder. However, with FRA likely not having staff at the moment, NCDOT told us they have not received comments back on their draft agreement, and so they are not able to proceed with phase 2 as planned. Otherwise, in Congress, they're continuing to work on surface transportation reauthorization. A draft is expected later this year or early 2026 to replace the IIJA, or Bipartisan Infrastructure Act. We're working with AMPO, the Association of MPOs, to hopefully get them to present at the joint TCC and board meeting on November 20th to provide additional information there. FY26 appropriations are essentially where we last left them. The House passed a recommended appropriations bill, which included $1.7 billion in cuts to public transportation and $2.6 billion in cuts to passenger rail. Senate appropriations, however, included a modest increase to public transit and flat funding for passenger rail. So more to come, or less, we'll see. For North Carolina, not a lot to update on. Just a reminder, the payback, I think, is something that's fairly relevant for folks to think about. It authorized Mecklenburg County to have a referendum on a 1-cent sales tax for transportation. 40% of the revenues would go towards road projects, 40% for rail, and 20% for transit. State budget update, no budget as of yet.
So the payback has been approved?
Yes, the payback is now law, and so that, my understanding is that's moving into, or that's moving forward with a referendum this fall.
But that's exclusively for Mecklenburg County?
Correct. Besides that, we're continuing work on the upcoming Transportation Summit, which is being hosted at the Crown Plaza Resort in Nashville in May. And so, especially in our region, both the rest. So we'll continue working on pulling together that agenda. You should have seen a call for abstract proposals. So if you're interested in presenting at the conference, please submit an abstract. We'll be going through those in a couple of months to help set up the agenda for the conference. And besides that, we'll be figuring out event spaces and the all-important swag bag. Lots of work on that front. Also, MPO staff presented at AMPO in Providence, Rhode Island, and I think that is about it. Anything I'm missing? You all should have gotten an email on NCDOT's call for pedestrian safety projects. And to note, one thing special with that is there is no local match being requested as part of that project. Those projects, toll credits are being used. Toll credits are a small part of what comes out, or one of the benefits of express lanes that help to provide essentially 100% federal financing for projects in North Carolina. And so that is being used for pedestrian safety projects. If you didn't get that email, please let me know. I'm happy to forward on. But it is an interesting opportunity. And to note, that is for smaller urban areas, as well as rural areas. So for us, that primarily means the Haywood County area and its municipalities, as well as Mars Hill, but also some of the fringes of Buncombe County and Henderson County. That's all I've got.
Terrific, thank you very much. At this time, are there any announcements, news, special updates, et cetera? Okay, I believe we have a joint meeting next month. Is that also with the RPO?
That is the plan, yes.
Okay. So we will be joined with our elected officials next month. Are we going to do a staff section and then a joint session and then staff leave?
The general way we do it is there's TCC business and then joint updates and then board business.
Excellent. All right. Is there any public comment at this time? Thank you all for listening to my nonsense. Have a good day.
Thank you, folks.